of course, I had to put gas in my vehicle. And around the time I had one of the older Suburbans. So I can't remember the year, but it's the same kind that Biggie Smalls had. So that box type in Suburban. So roughly, just for me to get to work, I was spending close to about $70 to $100 a week. Welcome to Debt Free in IT. I'm your host, Mike. This podcast is for anyone who's looking to get into the IT industry, whether it's for a career change or you're just interested. I think you come to the right place. So working remote in IT, especially fully remote, can sometimes create what I like to call the alien effect. Think about it. You're at home, your coworkers are at home, and then if there's nothing going on in the environment that day, there's probably no communication between your team. So you may end up just going through the motions, or if you just started this job, you may end up feeling like you're not learning enough or you're not picking up on the way things are on a day-to-day basis. So this can sometimes affect your well-being. It's crazy how something you may have wanted so bad, working remote, that's always been a big thing for some people. It's something that can end up making you burnt out or just make you tired of your job. Now, on the flip side, working remote is not anything new, but this did become real popular during COVID. So a lot of places end up having to switch from their employees coming in every day of the week to now their employees coming in a couple days during the week or maybe not coming in at all. And then they're able to still do their job from the comfort of their own home. But so sounds like a win. But then you fast forward a couple years later, some jobs out here, they're still fully remote. You know, you still can find some jobs out there like that, depending on the position you're looking for. Like most of the times in networking, if you're in a higher up position, maybe a senior engineer, you might be totally remote. But most of the time, if you're just coming into networking as a technician or something like that, you may be the one that's racking and stacking. So in that case, you may not be fully remote. You may be hybrid a little bit. So you're probably going to be going in sometimes. And the most common roles I see now are what you would call a hybrid role, meaning that you go in a couple of days out of the week and then you work remote a couple of days. So most places may have it where you're working 3 days in the office and then you have 2 days remote. Or you could be doing vice versa, where you got 2 days remote and you got 3 days coming in the office. So it sounds like a good deal, unless you're someone that's looking for that fully remote job. In this episode, we're looking at how working remote can affect your mental health. And also we're looking at some pros and some challenges of working remote, and also some strategies to help you create that productive at-home work environment. So first, I got to start out with the pros of working remote. So working remote, like I said, it can be that dream job, especially if you're a introvert, meaning you don't really care to be around a lot of people anyway. You don't care for communication. This is the perfect job for you, because the first pro I have with working remote is that it's going to save money. So think about it. For me, for instance, when I was working in the healthcare environment, my job was roughly about 45 minutes one way. So I had to drive 45 minutes one way, 45 minutes back. So of course, I had to put gas in my vehicle. And around the time I had one of the older Suburbans. So I can't remember the year, but it's the same kind that Biggie Smalls had. So that box type in Suburban. So roughly, just for me to get to work, I was spending close to about $70 to $100 a week. So it cost me a lot of money just to get to work. So it cost me $100, you might well say, just to get back and forth to work. So me driving 45 minutes each day, like I said, it didn't save no money. So working remote, the biggest plus, the biggest pro to working remote to me is, of course, it's going to save money on your commute costs. And then also, another thing it's going to save money on is if you're one that when you go into the office, you pretty much go to the cafeteria to buy lunch every day. You never bring lunch from home. So working remote is going to save money in that aspect, because you're going to be at home. When it's time for your lunch, you can just log out of your PC, walk in your kitchen, and fix you something to eat. So fix you a good sandwich or something, you know what I'm saying? So you go to the kitchen, fix you something to eat, saving money both ways. So you pretty much, with this aspect, you're saving money hand over fist. And then another way that it's going to save money, or save time, is that being that you don't have to travel to your job, is that you're not going to run into that traffic. So if you stay in the major cities, especially I know the major city to me is Charlotte. So if you stay in Charlotte, you all know that if you on the road roughly from 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning, you're running into traffic going to work. And then if you're getting off around 5, you're running into traffic leaving from work. So you're not going to have that added stress of having to sit in traffic every day, you're only 15 minutes from your house, but it's taking you an hour to get home because of traffic. So that's one of the first pros to working remote. So the next pro to working remote is that flexibility. So working remote, it does give you the beauty or the aspect of, or the satisfaction of, you're able to manage a lot of your personal responsibilities a little bit better. So you're able to manage doctor appointments, because instead of you going to work, having to get off early, then drive the opposite way going to your doctor appointment, you can now just have your doctor appointment, and let's say you're working remote, you could just let your boss know, hey, I have a doctor appointment roughly at 11 o'clock, so I'm going to be gone for like an hour or two. And then that way, instead of missing a whole day, where if you had to drive in, you pretty much had to leave, and if you left, 9 times out of 10, you're not coming back that day. So having that flexibility of being able to manage those personal appointments like doctor's appointments, and especially as we're getting older. So as we're getting older, I know roughly I'm in my 40s, so it seems like, you have doctor's appointments every couple months, or if something's going on, which when you get older, you wake up, something else is sore. A lot of stuff started going on when you hit that 40 mark. So just being able to set up a doctor's appointment, go see your doctor. And then also if you have kids, I don't have any kids, but if you do have kids, you're able to make their appointments too. Because let's say if your kid plays after school sports, then a lot of times if you're at your workplace, it could be a little bit harder to leave work, then make it to your kid's game. Where if you're at home, you're probably closer to where that game is at. Or if that game is somewhere in another town, you got a better jump on time, because you could just leave home and then go towards that appointment. If the game is going on at 5, you get off at 5, you can say, okay, I need to leave a little bit early, and then you can still make that appointment. So having that work flexibility is another pro to being able to work fully remote. And then my last pro to working remote, believe it or not, there are studies out there, but working remote, you are able to get more work done. Seems weird because a lot of times if you never worked remote before, you might be thinking in your head, oh, if I work remote, I probably wouldn't do anything. I'll probably walk around the house doing whatever. But nah, most of the time, if you're a responsible adult and you're working remote, a lot of times you end up getting a lot of stuff done. So just thinking about it from a networking aspect. So if you're in office and let's say you got a couple of switches and routers that you need to put a configuration on. So with this here, you got a couple switches and routers you need to put a configuration on. If you're there at the job and you're trying to do that, a lot of times you may get pulled into other issues. So you're trying to hurry up, just get this task done by putting the configurations on these devices so they can go and get put in production. But if you're on site, a lot of times if issues going on or another issue pop up, someone's going to come grab you, say, hey, can you take a look at this for me? Or, hey, can you help with this? So you're going to end up where you may have came to work that day saying that, oh, I'm going to go ahead and knock this out and have it out the way, where you may have gotten to work and end up not even touching those devices. So being at home, there's no one to bother you. So there's no one that's going to come grab you and say, hey, can you look at this issue? Or, being at home, the only way they're going to grab you, they may send you a message or an IM saying, hey, can you take a look at this when you get free? But 9 times out of 10, they're going to, if there's someone that's in office that needs help, they're going to go to somebody else that's in office also. So if you're working remote, a lot of times you're able to get a lot of the smaller tasks done. You're able to knock out a lot of work. You're able to be more productive in the aspect of you can focus on one task, get that task done, and not having to worry about getting pulled in other issues or other things that's going on. So like I said, that's twofold. So first thing, with working remote, you don't have no one to bother you, so you can get more tasks done. And then also you tend to not get pulled in other people's issues. So that's one of the big things with working in support. A lot of times you may go there and think that, oh, I got a clear schedule today. But as we know in networking, something's always going on. You're always getting pulled in different issues. It may be another team's issue, but they may need a networking engineer to look at their end of it to make sure that everything is good on the network. So like I said, the last pro I had was, believe it or not, you're able to get more work done. Moving on, we already looked at some pros to working remote. The next thing we're going to look at is some challenges you may encounter when working remote. So the first challenge is it's easy to mix your work and personal life together. So with this, you end up working when you're supposed to be off. So a lot of times, if you think about it, if you work remote, a lot of times it's hard to kind of put that clear, hard boundary to, oh, I'm off work or I'm still working. You may tend to it be after 5 and there's emails still being sent, and you just, without even thinking, just respond to email. So you don't, it's hard to kind of, your boundaries kind of get blurred a little bit when you're working fully remote, because sometimes you don't, it's hard to tell when you're off or when you're at work. So especially if you're not paying attention to the time and things like that. There's been plenty of times I've been working remote and it's after 5 where you shouldn't be concerned with anything at work technically, unless you're on call. But it's after 5, emails being sent, and not even thinking about it. You may not even think about it as you're working, but you go ahead and respond to the email. If it's something that needs to be fixed, if it's something you can do real quick, you end up jumping on it and doing it. So a lot of times those boundaries get blurred where you end up still working when you're supposed to be off. Or sometimes maybe if you have an off day, you may have taken a vacation day, but you took the vacation day just to catch up on some things around the house. You still may end up without even thinking about it. A lot of times, trust me, it becomes second nature where if something's going on, someone sends you an email, and in our head, where at least in my head, it's like, oh, this is a quick fix. Let me go and just respond and get it. So, but like I said, it's a clear thing where that boundary has been blurred. So you can end up working when you're supposed to be off. And then the next challenge to working remote, well, this, like I said, it's a challenge for me. It may not be a challenge for you, but it's a challenge for a lot of people that I talk to that work fully remote or have jobs or maybe work for themselves and they're fully just remote. So the challenge is isolation and just that feeling of being lonely. So a lot of times, one of the things I liked about going in, one of the things I like about going in on any job is that you get that social interaction. So if you're someone new coming onto a role, a lot of times I would prefer to go into the job if I'm new and getting trained, just because I get that social interaction and I feel like I may get trained a little bit better, because a lot of times trying to get trained remote on something technical, you know, yeah, you can share your screen and things like that, but sometimes it helps out just being there in person with whoever is training you. So you don't get that social interaction. So sometimes, like I said, just being in that office environment, meeting your teammates, like some people work remote, may have been working remote for years and never saw their teammates. Only thing you know, you saw them on camera, never met their teammates in person. So a lot of times I think this is a big mishap, because a lot of times for me, I want to meet my teammates because I want to build that relationship. I want to build that bond, because you never know when one of those teammates may be the one to help you move up to that next level. And then also just learning from someone who has already been in that position for a long time. A lot of times they know all the nuggets. They know all the small details that really count. They know that, oh, when this is doing this thing, this is about to happen. So they know all of that. So, you know, it's hard to get that understanding or hard to get that communication part from being remote. If you're remote and they're remote, a lot of times you may feel like, oh, I don't want to bother them and things like that. But if you're there in person, you're pretty much following this person around. So, hey, every time they get an issue, hey, I'm coming with you, bro. I'm gonna take notes on your issue. That way, when I get out on my own, I had a fix for if I get this same issue. So, like I said, that's one of the challenges, is that isolation and that feeling of being lonely, because you don't get that social interaction. And especially if you're a newcomer to that role. If you're an old veteran, you may be cool with being remote. But if you're someone new coming onto a role, like I said, for me, I want to come in. I want to come into the building. I want to swipe my badge somewhere. I want to walk in somebody's doors. You know, so I may not technically want to go in that much 6-7 days a week or 5 days a week, but give me at least about 2 or 3 of them where I can go in and meet people. So like I said, that's one of the challenges that I have. And then the last challenge I have to working remote, I kind of hinted on it a little bit just before, but that miscommunication with teammates. So if you're someone like me where I kind of type the way I talk, so That may be a good thing, may not be a good thing. But I have to always kind of look over stuff before I send it, just because I want to make sure it's not coming off the wrong way. Almost like when you're texting someone and you're texting, let's say you just meet someone and you're going out dating and y'all are communicating through nothing but text. And they may text you something that's serious, but to you it may come off like they joking. So you send back the LOL and then you don't hear from them no more. They ghost you. So that same aspect. So that same miscommunication can happen in the technical environment, because you can have issues you're working on and you may be trying to communicate with a teammate to get some help, or you may be just communicating, and it's a lot of times chat is easy to misunderstand. So that's why even when I'm remote, if it's something, a complicated issue I'm working on, or a complicated issue I was working on, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna pick up that phone and call you, because I want to talk to someone. You know, a lot of times through text message or through IMs or through chat, it's hard to get the whole situation through. You said you'll be sitting there typing for days. So you got that miscommunication aspect. So a lot of times, like I said, for me, if it's a teammate I need to talk to, hey, let's hop on this Zoom real quick. Let's hop on this Teams meeting real quick. That way I can communicate with you with my words instead of trying to type everything out, because typing it out via chat and everything is easy to get misunderstood. And then you end up have a coworker mad at you, or you're mad at another coworker and they don't even understand what's going on. Sorry to interrupt this video. According to my YouTube analytics, 84% of my viewers are not subscribed. If I provided any value to you in any one of my episodes and you're not subscribed, please consider doing so, as it does help out the channel. And also, if you're listening to this in your favorite podcasting app, please leave me a review and share this episode with a friend. Now back to the episode. So the last category I have for working remote is we're going to look at some strategies and some ideas that you can incorporate as a remote worker. The first thing is you want to set some boundaries. You know, I know it's hard to, depending on your job. I'm not saying go out and get fired over this, but you do want to create some kind of boundary within yourself that you keep. A lot of times working remote means that, okay, yeah, I'm off the clock at 5, or you're supposed to be off the clock at 5, unless you're on call, then you know you do have that on-call responsibility. But the main thing is the little small things that may be taking up your time or adding more stress on your plate is a lot of stuff, especially with emails. A lot of things can wait until tomorrow. You know, so I'm guilty of this myself, you know, coming from the healthcare environment to where I am now. A lot of times I still respond to emails a lot. So like I said, you want to create that clear boundary. This is something I'm always working on myself. So I'm not just telling you, I'm also a member of this. I'm trying to work on this myself. So create that boundary. When you're off, you need to be off. So if you're off at 5 o'clock, somebody send that message at 5:30, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Somebody send all that. You know, it's one of the things where you have to be able to kind of make a good judgment call. Like, okay, is this urgent? Because if it's something urgent, of course you want to hop in, figure it out, get things fixed. But if it's not urgent, 9 times out of 10, that thing can wait till the next day. It can wait till you come back in office, wait until you're on the clock. I know sometimes, like I said, this get blurred, especially if you're in a position where you're working your salary. I know this can get blurred a lot because you feel like, oh, well, I'm always on the clock. So, but one of the first tips is you want to create that boundary. That way, when you're off, you're fully off and you get a chance to relieve some of that stress by not even thinking about anything that's going on in the workplace until you clock in or until your day starts the next morning. And then another strategy that you can incorporate is that even though you're at home and you're working fully remote, you still need to take your breaks. So if you was at the job and you took let's say you took a break before lunch for about 15 minutes, then you took a lunch break, then you had another break. Or if you're in IT, most of the time the breaks don't really go like that. It just kind of, you take a break whenever you're tired or something like that. You take a chill or whatever. That's not official a break except for lunch break. So a lot of times, like I said, even though you're at home, you still want to incorporate that break time in where, okay, if I was in the office, I'll be taking my lunch at 1 o'clock. So usually if I'm working from home, I take my lunch around the same time. So at 1 o'clock, oh, let me go and take my lunch. I'm not going to be looking at my computer. I'm not going to be doing everything. This is the equivalent to me being in the workplace and walking to that cafeteria, getting my lunch, sitting down and eating. So I'm going to walk in my kitchen, make me a sandwich or something, you know what I'm saying? Make me something to eat. and I'm gonna sit there and eat. So I'm gonna be on my lunch break. Then, like I said, if you have any other breaks that you take, you still want to incorporate those breaks to still kind of keep that structure where, yeah, you're working from home, but it's not like, oh, because I'm working at home, I need to be always on this PC for 8 hours. I need to show them that I'm logged in for 8 hours. I need to be on ready, have my light green on under my name for 8 hours. So you still want to take your breaks, and I'm pretty sure your employer still wants you to take your breaks. So like I said, that's something that you still want to incorporate. A lot of times, like I said, working remote, you get kind of in that groove where you're just sitting at your desk, you're already at home. So this is something that you could easily look over, but small things creates big things. So this little small thing, along with the boundaries, could end up just making you burnt out. Even though you're working remote and it seems like everything is all good, this is the dream thing, but it still could get you burnt out. And then the last thing I have, a strategy that you can incorporate. And like I said, this strategy here to me is the top dog, because a lot of times we have built up stress that we don't know that we have. You ever been to the point where, you got built up stress, you don't know it, then all of a sudden you just have like a little breakdown or something, or a little anxiety attack or something like that, where all that stress is built up, has to come out somewhere. You're holding it in. You could be stressed out from your job or whatever. You're not letting it go. So this last strategy, physical activity. So if you're into the resistance training, go to the gym. Trust me, working out will relieve a lot of stress. So a lot of times if I'm stressed out, and you probably can see from some of the pictures I post, I'm going to the gym. So I'm in the gym. That way you got an hour or however long you stay in the gym where you're not really focusing on anything that has to do with work. You're in there working out. You're relieving stress because you're straining with the weights and everything. You're training to exhaustion. So that physical activity, like I said, is a cure for a lot of stuff. Physical activity cures a lot of things that we have built up inside of us that we may not know how to get out. So that physical activity could be playing a sport, could be attending a boot camp, could be doing some other kind of training. You could be training for boxing or something like that you enjoy. And just that physical activity, having that hour or two where you're just getting that stress out, can go a long way. So like I said, that's another strategy. And also I would say that that's my top strategy. So usually whenever I'm stressed, I make sure I get to the gym that day, whether I'm working out with weights or if I'm doing cardio or if I'm doing jump ropes. So like I said, add these things to your repertoire, and then hopefully, it keeps you from getting burnt out or anything like that. So when it comes to working remote, like I said, a lot of times, like I said in the beginning, can make you kind of feel alienated, especially if you're someone new coming onto this position, because like I said, you need to have that physical interaction to where you can actually learn the job. Most of the time when I talk to folks that's being trained remote, they feel like you may be bothering the person that's supposed to be training you, or they may not be giving you the training that you think you need or that you think you should get. So a lot of times for me, just my preference, like I said, with a lot of jobs out there, art is still offering remote roles. I usually prefer the hybrid role. So if I'm looking for a job, I'm looking for either a hybrid or something where I'm going in every day, because it's something where, to me, call it old school or whatever you want. But for me, I like that social interaction, because I like knowing who my teammates are. I like building that relationship with them, because you never know when you may need a reference or when you may need someone, or then too, you may just truly end up making a friend. So a lot of times I like to know who my teammates are, get cool with my teammates. That way you have that team environment in every aspect. You're clicking on all cylinders. That way you got someone, if you're in an issue that they may have encountered before, you got someone you can call for some help and things like that, some pointers. You got someone to learn from. So a lot of times, I know in this environment we live in today, a lot of times we seek out different mentors and things like that. So always you're seeking out someone that's maybe a couple steps ahead of you, or maybe they may be where you're trying to get to. A lot of times you're going to find that person in your team when you move to a new position. So in networking, like I said, every position I had, I found that person. So when I was in desktop, it was a couple people like that. So I kind of just stuck with them. I learned the tools of the trade from them, then added my own twisted things. And then, I moved to networking. I did the same thing where my whole team was pretty much my mentor. So all of them was above me. All of them were steps where I was trying to get to. So I'm able to learn from each and every one of them. There's things I picked up that I wouldn't have picked up if I wouldn't have been in that role under that person, because everyone has their own way of doing things. So like I said, usually if I get the option to, I'm choosing that hybrid role, so let me know your thoughts on what role you choose. Do you prefer fully remote jobs, just being from home? I know that is the dream job per se. Or would you like to be hybrid where you come in 2 or 3 days out of the week, then you work remote? I have seen some jobs too where they work 14 days. They come in for 14 days, half the month, and then they're remote for the other 14 days. So you got different ways that different places lay it out, but let me know your thoughts and let me know which one do you prefer. So that brings me to the end of this episode. Hopefully you found some value in this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, you can follow me at Debt Free in IT. If you have any questions, you can email me at debtfreeinit@gmail.com, or you can visit the website debtfreeinitwithmike.com. Other than that, I'll see you next week. Peace.